What was your biggest challenge in your life?
Biggest challenge in my life?
Yes,
It's a deep question you're about to start us off.
this is how we're doing it here.
I would say biggest challenge is maybe going to war and then coming home and reintegrating. I'd say that was pretty challenging on a personal level. I'd say business is you know I would exclude anything business related from that conversation. I think this is more deeply personal, and I think going to war is extremely challenging. But then coming home sometimes can be even harder, and that's more recent in my recent history. What would you say for yourself?
I will say the same. Uh, I think it's really difficult to do the switch between going to war and coming home, and I'm sure that your switch is by far more difficult because you live in the USA
Mm-hmm.
and you're flying to different country,
Mm-hmm.
fighting, then you're coming back home, you're flying again.
Yeah, I mean, between us, like in the military, you're always anticipating going to war, right? That's what you train for day in, day out. 2, 3 years, you train for war, and then you serve in the Marine, in reserve, and then all of a sudden the war comes, and you show up, and you fight, and then you come home, and I think everyone expects you to be the same, even though that person is no longer there. You're a totally different Yovel or Eli, or different version of yourself, and kind of come to terms with that can be challenging. And then just to settle and have a soft landing and reintegrate and get back into relationships, into work, into all these different components of your life when you're a very different person than you were, you know, a year or 2 years before.
Eli Cohen, business leader, veteran of the IDF, sniper, and ex-special forces. How are you?
Doing well.
Perfect. So
How are
let's
you,
start.
Yuval?
I'm great.
Yeah.
We start really strong with the question about the biggest challenge and the difference between war and to be home,
Mm-hmm.
and how it's influenced the life, the daily life. And let's take that a little bit further.
Okay.
What do you think is the most comparing thing between business and war?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because in business lingo, in business language, we always talk about war. It's always referenced in, whether you're going to pull the trigger on a certain deal, or we're going to parachute you into this specific, task that needs to be done. And it's part of our kind of colloquial language. Just, wars and combat is kind of embedded in that. But what's similar between the two?
Yes.
I would say absolutely nothing is similar. When you go to war and you have the noise and the fear and the anxiety and all of that, and then you come back into the business world where, the stakes are not as high as we think they are.
Mhm.
If you can really remove yourself, no one's going to die. You're at the end of the day, you're going to be sleeping in your bed next to the people that you love. Life goes on. But in war, you don't have that assurance. You don't know when the next time you're going to eat, when you're going to go to sleep, if you're going to go to sleep, what the deal is, when you're going home. You don't have that certainty. And I'd say without those guardrails, I would not say war and business are alike. I would say that, war can help you in business, but I would not say that they're alike. Is there anything that you incorporate from war, into the podcast or into your own business?
I always try to explain people that in war we're playing with our life. This is the world is a game, so there is different games. When you're going to fight, you're playing that game. You're going to play the game of war. That the win or lose, it's if you're staying alive or you dying.
Yeah.
Then I go into the business game. The business game, it's about money. It's worst case scenario, you're losing money.
Mhm.
Best case scenario, you're making money. And then asking other people how you was able to go and fight with your life, on your life, and you don't have the courage to fight and play with money. And for me, it doesn't make sense why people are scared to make that action, to achieve that goals that they want to achieve. And then it takes me to the name of the podcast, The Way of the 1%, that only the 1% of the population in the world, like 0.1%, but let's say 1%, able to play the game of the money.
But do you think people are afraid? Or do you think it's more that they're apathetic, that maybe they never had much money growing up and they don't know what having money would do in terms of opening different, doors in their life? Like, do you think it's fear that's impeding them, the fear of losing money, or is it that they just don't know that world, or they don't care about that world, or they just survived, 2 years of war and hell, and now they come back and their life is exactly the way that they want it to be because every morning they wake up and they have 2 arms and 2 legs and they can kind of exist in the daily world. Do you think it's fear or do you think it's something else?
So I don't know how much I can look about it's fear, but people have the comfort zone, and I don't blame them. It's nice to be in a comfort zone. When you open a business and you put all yourself into the business, you're in survival mode. That you try to make some money for living, because in the end you need money. Doesn't matter how much money you need money for living. Mm-hmm. So when people in the comfort zone, that they have the work that they dream, they have everything that they want to do, they have the ability to go home, to hang out with their wife, to hang out with their children, to hang out with their friend, that's something I really understand. I don't think it's fear. It's like they don't understand what they're missing.
Yeah.
And I don't think the entrepreneurship world fit to everyone. It's a lot of pressure. People get lost themselves. People getting suicide. People losing money. But I think there is something new in 2025 that today people can build businesses without risk any money and try to see how it's fit for them. And if they have the goals, the dream, the ability to think about that, they can start doing that in the small and the easiest way. Just to find one client that they want to work with about something that they have passion about and make that happen. So I don't know how much it's fear, like they understand that today business not need to be so risky like people think it is.
Understood. I'll give you a personal example. Like on October 7th, when I was here in Boulder, you wake up, hear the news, and I flew to Israel the same day. I was at the Denver airport and my flight to Germany was boarding. I was flying to Germany, then to Istanbul, then to Tel Aviv, and then, was going to join my team at the border and go into war. But when I was at Denver airport and my flight was boarding, I was there with my passport and my ticket, and I was the last person to get on the plane because I realized once I stepped foot on the plane, I'm opening up a whole new world of costs and consequences. And, I stepped foot on the plane. And the whole plane ride, I was writing down my will. I was compiling bank information because I thought there's no way I can probably coming out of this alive. So fast forward 2 years, having done a couple deployments in Gaza, and I don't know about you, but being in those situations where you kind of look around and you're like, there's no way in hell we're going to get out of this alive. Like something is going to happen. I'm going to get shot. We're going to get blown up. We're going to hit an IED. It's just luck at that point. So I think having survived all of that, now back in the business world, I wouldn't say I'm fearless, but it's definitely given me a barometer of experiences where I'm not afraid. Like if I have to make a business decision, that is not real fear. It's a type of fear, but worst case that happens is you lose your money or you lose your investors' money, but life goes on. So I think I have that barometer of experiences where now I'm not frozen. I'm not afraid to act because I feel like I have a second lease on life after surviving all that we did. And now we're here. It's like, how beautiful is every day? Like we're so, fortunate to be here. And now it's like, why don't we just go crazy and do everything that we can?
No, I agree with you 100%. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to get you to the show, because when we're speaking with each other, I feel that we have something really aligned. Is the decision that we take. That there is a huge difference, and I felt that a lot of times in the USA, when people shake your hands in a business meeting and say, we're doing that. And even after that, they're scheduling more meetings further. And a couple of days after, when it's come for the payment, they don't doing that. And for me, like I know when I make a decision and I shook the hands, it's 100% done. And I feel really bad that today the men are not real men because of that reason. Yeah, they're taking so much time and it's so hard for them to make the decision, even in a relationship, even in business. Like why the guys always doesn't like the girlfriend asks them what we're eating for dinner. The girlfriend need the guy, the man, to make the decision in the smallest thing in life. Whatever you want, babe, you know her. You know what you want. Just make the fucking decision because it will never end. And then it's coming for your personal life. It's like you need to do something, do it. Make the decision, commit to what you decide, and make that happen. You want to open a business, you want to make better life for yourself, make the decision, commit, and make that happen. It sounds so easy, but people are getting hard time to doing that.
Do you think it's our generation that isn't making decisions, or they're going back on their decisions, or do you think is it based on like generation and age, or do you think it's common across men here in the United States, any age, any ethnicity, anything, where word is no longer your bond?
I think it's common to the people that doesn't want to achieve huge things in their life, and you can see how it's fit for the family. And the people that shook my hands and say let's do it, there was 50 years and above, like there was, I think 55 one of them, 57 the other one, but you see that all their life they didn't make decision to change them. I think it's something inside the person that you need to understand what he wants from his life and to do everything to achieve that goal. I always say, you have a dream, put the dream as a goal, and start to action. You have to do it.
Yeah, I understand that, but I also think a lot of people haven't had the same circumstances or the same opportunities that we had. For example, if we didn't go to war, if we weren't in the military, we'd probably be, so much of our characteristics are innate as Yovel or as Eli. But I think being in the military hardens you and makes you stand straighter and makes your word your bond, and you're able to make decisions quicker and quicker and under pressure. And whereas, maybe if we didn't do that, we would be a little bit wishy-washy, or we'd say, let me get back to you tomorrow instead of making a decision on the spot. Like, we have been trained a certain way by the IDF and by the culture that you grew up in Israel to make decisions, and your word is your bond. Whereas we don't have that here in the United States. We've never, we haven't had conscription since the Vietnam War. We don't know what service is among our generation.
That's true and not true in the same time, because if that was 100% true, we were seeing the most successful persons in the world, all of them will be veterans. And it's not the situation right now. I don't think Jeff Bezos went to the military. I don't think Mark Zuckerberg went to the military. I don't think Elon Musk went to the military. But in the end, they are the most successful person. Larry Ellison, they are the most successful person in the world right now. So there is something about what you're saying that can really help. Like me, when I went to war, like you say, I was sure 100% that I'm gonna die. Our mutual friends, Dustin, one day he read the letters that I wrote to my family, because I was sure 100% that I'm gonna die. So I was like writing the letters to every person in my family, and Dustin once time asked me about it, and I let him to read that, and he saw that and he was shocked, because no one need to write that in the age of 25. I was.
Did you ever share those letters after the fact with your family or loved ones?
So I don't think my family ever read that. I know my ex-girlfriend read the letter that I wrote then to her. I don't think ever my family read it. I still have them in my phone, and they have all the letters, still all my financial info.
Yeah.
But I never let my family read it, because when I joined the military, my father told me something that stay with me and it will stay with me for the rest of my life. He told me the nature of the world is that that son bury father and not father bury son. Then we don't die. And that's make me to think always like one day we will need to bury our fathers. And that day one day will come, and that's the nature of the world. And then it took me like for a feeling like, wow, it's true, and I need to learn from my father, to be with my father, to ask him questions. But at the same moment, he wants me to grow up and be a man by myself. And I think it's like difficult to think about that. It just make me like, how the fuck person can think about losing his father? And then I was thinking about my father point of view. How the fuck a father can think to losing a son? And you and me have right now dogs. Like I will tell you right now, someone will be able to kill Mookie. You will do everything to protect her. She's like your daughter.
Yeah.
And I feel the same about Momo. And that's so crazy for me. Like one day we will have a real child, and we'll do everything to give him and provide him. And then it took me to other thing about the decision maker, the making in business and all that stuff. My father always tell me, do your best. And he was able to tell me that because he did his best. And then when I'm looking about myself, which kind of father I want to be. I want to be the father telling my son, hey, you can do everything to be successful, and follow that and believe that. And you will see myself, and I will lead by example. And I want to be that father. I don't want to be the father that saying, hey son, you can do it, but I never did it. And right now we don't have nothing to lose. Because worst case scenario, you're going to live with your parents and you're starting all over again. How much money we have that we can lose? What we have to lose?
That's true. Yeah, you could literally lose the shirt off your back and everything you own, and you'll still be okay. You'll still figure it out. And, I think I'm not a parent, but I think a parent's biggest fear is outliving their children, right? And I think, in war, like I learned more about courage, like through my mom's actions than through my own or through any of my teammates, is because like my mom, she gave me her blessing to go to war, even though her biggest fear was, something happening to me. But she thought that, if I was held hostage in Gaza, she would want every single soldier to go and try to find me. And that's a debt we owe everyone else. So I think that takes an enormous amount of courage when you have skin in the game and you know what you have to lose, but you're still giving your son a blessing to say, go do what you think is right, because it matters, because this is important, because it's an inflection point in history, especially as Jews. So I think that is an enormous amount of courage. And I've, learning that from my mom, if I can apply that in my regular life and my business life, I think I'll be, a much better man for it.
For your sons. No, and I think that podcast took us to focus mainly on decision. And I think that's something that separates the 1% from the other, decision making. And the book that I wrote, that I hope so one day I will launch him, there is like full chapter about decision. That I speak in how much is important to make decision. And when you look about that, you see that 80%, 70% of the decision in your life will not change nothing. What you're gonna eat, where you're gonna eat, when you're gonna wake up, all that stuff, it will not change nothing in your fucking life. And then if you see about your daily life, it's true. 70% of the decision that you make, you will flow your day regular, like nothing happened. Then you have the 20% of the decision that will change your life. And that decision is the hardest for the people to take. So when the people will understand what is that amount of decision and that 30%, and then we'll understand what is the 70%, the 70%, it will be out of thinking, what they're gonna do, how they're gonna eat, which car I'm gonna drive, doesn't matter. So that will take them the power, it will give them more power to focus on the 30%. And then the 30% decision, that will really influence their life. And now we need to speak about how we can help the people and help us to be better in making that decision. And I'll ask you that question, what is the practical advice that you can give to people to make decision?
For me, it's like if you have a decision, you have to discern one of two things. Is it a reversible decision or is it irreversible? If it's reversible, saying, hey, I want to buy, a Tesla Cybertruck, for example, you can buy the truck and then you can always sell it, right? You can always change your mind. Sure, you might lose some money. It might be expensive, etc., but you can always change your mind. That's a reversible decision. Irreversible decision is, the decision to choose to have children, things that are more permanent. And those are the decisions where you really need to sit down and be thoughtful and think about your actions. But I think first and foremost, to discern what is reversible and what is irreversible, because I think oftentimes we confuse them and we think one is the other when it's not the case. So to just be very clear and just know, okay, I can always make up my mind later in 2 months or in 2 years if it doesn't work out. And that way you save a lot of time, energy, and personal, bandwidth than not knowing.
Okay, so let's say you have like the Cybertruck situation, reversible option decision to make. How you can understand there if that reversible decision will help me or not will help me, like the Cybertruck. How you will compare that to your regular life to make a decision or not to make the decision. You can take Cybertruck, you can take open a business, because every business you can close. You can change the Cybertruck to open a business. So let's say you want to open a business, you can every day close the business. Worst case scenario, you lose 5 grand, 10 grand about the business. Why you will make, Eli, will make the decision to open the business rather not to open the business?
If we bring this back concrete and like, let's say, like, I know that you want to buy a Porsche at some point in time, right?
Mhm.
You don't really know why exactly, but it's something that you've always wanted for your whole life. So, you can purchase that car and move on, and you can always sell it. And, maybe it's going to be very expensive to buy and to maintain and whatever, but it's something you want to do and you don't know why. Life is short. Who thought we would have lived this long? You might as well do it.
Mhm.
Right? If you're looking to open up a branch in Austin, right? This is actually a reversible decision. You can open up a branch. If it doesn't go well, you can close it down. Sure, you might lose some money. You might get, into a lease and then have to break the lease in a year down the road, but that's a reversible decision. And I think, right now you're kind of stuck in the middle. You're stuck in quicksand, deliberating between the two.
Mhm.
Right? Should I open it? Should I not? If so, when do I open it? And I think, at some point you just need to trust your instincts and make the best decision you can with the information you have. Because usually we say, what, I might wait, 6 months or a year before I have more information and do your homework, which is one thing. But sometimes it's like, it can just be paralysis. The more information you have, the more you're confused, and you just need to make a decision. And there's power behind it.
That's true.
Right? Do your homework now and then decide, and then don't look back. Don't question it once you make the decision.
That's true. I love that. In the moment that you make the decision, don't question that. That's for sure. And do your homework. It's like what I'm doing right now with location Austin, that I'm trying to understand if this is the right time or 2 months from now is the right time. So then I did, when I tried to build a contract, that I get the 2 months that I were on the road that I want to open. So if I get that right now, I open it in December. If I don't get in that right now, I open it in January or February. But I have that option available for me. I have the decision and doing my homework to understand how much time it takes me to make that place profitable. How much time it makes a decision if to keep that place or not. I put all that in a timeline, and then it's easier for me to make the decision. But in the moment you make the decision, there is no questions.
Correct. And I think once you make the decision, you can still put safeguards around and put off ramps. Whereas, let's say, yes, you move to Austin and you open up a branch. You can say within 1 year, I'm going to check in with myself. And if the profit loss isn't where I thought it was going to be, then maybe I close up shop. If it is, or it's within some buffer, you have different KPIs that you set where you kind of keep yourself accountable. But you have to write them out now before you make the decision in order to hold yourself accountable and honest later on.
I agree. And I think that's the main of the question that you will have in your life is irreversible decision. That you can make decision and always come back to, after 1 year you try, doesn't work, you can close the business, you can break up from the girlfriend, you can stop that, you can break the lease. There is so many examples. But I really, really believe that in the moment that you have a gut feeling about something, especially if you can, say, okay, it's not fit for me, thank you very much, I try, I will go home. At least you tried. You will not live your life with a feeling that FOMO, fear of missing out. I will know that I did it and I show up and I tried and I did my best and it didn't work out. That's okay. It's happened to the best.
Yeah. And I think it's among our generation, we have decision fatigue, right? We live in a world where there's so much information and, by the time 5 p.m. rolls around and you're at home with, your girlfriend and she says, hey, Yovel, what do you want for dinner? and you're just exhausted. You don't want to make another decision because you already made 5,000 today, right? And that's when you say, oh, I don't know, you choose. But if throughout the day you actually discerned what decisions were reversible and irreversible, you can make decisions much faster without much deliberation. And then you get home at 5 p.m. and Lily says, hey, Yovel, what do you want for dinner? And you're like, I really want Thai food. Because you have that emotional bandwidth to make a decision and you're not exhausted and in paralysis.
That's true.
Make it easier for yourself during the day and either say yes to things or no to things and don't really deliberate on them and try to make a decision quick most of the time.
I love that. So I will ask you 3 questions for the closing part. First, I will ask you, what is the most difficult or hardest decision that you ever did in your life?
I would bring it back to the military. And
okay.
I think in the profession that I was as a sniper, I think there's no decision more important than picking, who lives and who dies, things like that. And of course, you have confines and you have rules of engagement, but at the end of the day, decisions come to you personally, and you know the rules, you know what you can do, what you can't do, and you have to make decisions based on inaccurate and inadequate information. And I think some of those decisions are extremely challenging. So I would say those have been some of the hardest decisions I've made, but I don't have, any regrets. I would make the same decisions over again, but they're not easy decisions as a human being. As a soldier and, you're in Gaza, you're in war. But I would not say those are easy decisions, and they are decisions that follow you. And I think that they can, they stay in your heart, even though you made the right decision and you'd make the decision over again. I think it still, takes up space in your heart.
No, I agree. And the second question, what do you feeling is the purpose of your life?
The proper what?
The purpose of your life.
Purpose of my life? Oh man, you're giving me real softballs today. Thanks, Yovel.
Always.
Purpose of my life. I'd say I'm still discovering that, but to try to be, the kindest, most considerate, loving person I can to the vast majority of people that I encounter. And just try to do the right thing when no one's looking, and just try to be a mensch, just try to be a good guy. But I don't know. How would you answer that question? What's the purpose of your life?
That's a good question. I think my purpose of my life is to do something big enough that influence the most of the world. And that was always my dream, to change the world. And that's why I choose that way of business. This is why I start my podcast in Israel. This is why I keep my podcast in different way, but over here in the USA. This is why I help clients to do podcasts. I don't think I never told someone that doesn't got money to do podcasts, no, I will not give you even 1 episode for free. And I think in the end, doesn't matter how much money you make, how much stuff you have, how much houses, apartment, Porsches, and I love all that stuff. And it doesn't matter how much you have from all of that. It matters how many people you impact in your life, how much your family trusts you, how much your friends love you. And that's something that I'm trying always to do, to help, to be a fountain and not a drain, to give more than I take. I think that's my purpose of my life.
I love it. Thanks for sharing that.
Always. So I ask you the last question before I'm going to do summary, and we're going to summarize everything. Why in the age of 22, 23, I think, you finish college, you got the dream job of your life, of everyone that study whatever you study, you decide to keep everything behind you and join the military?
So I'll bring this back to the Seamantope family and, to Dustin's dad, Sina, who I interned for in college. We were talking about, what it means to be wealthy. And I've realized kind of early on in my life that I want to be a wealthy man in terms of experiences, and try to experience things for myself and not be force-fed what my community believes in or what I read about or, I wanted to see the world with my own eyes and make my own decisions. And I think Israel was a place that was always very close to my heart. You know, my grandparents fought in the War of Independence in 1948. I have family there that I wanted to connect with. And I think it sounded like the adventure of a lifetime, you know, to move to a foreign country that I'm, you know, have deep roots in, a place that I don't speak the language, but I wanted to, and to just start to develop my own opinions about the world, about the IDF, about the region, and kind of, feel the sand in my hands and really see it with my own eyes, and then take that for the rest of my life. I had no idea I would be, a sniper or go to war, multiple occasions, but it was something that I think gave me a lot of experiences. And you see yourself at your most naked and your most vulnerable as a man, right? These are situations that are almost impossible to simulate in your civilian life. But all of a sudden you're in Gaza and you have to make a decision, or you're in a situation where you are the most naked and most vulnerable you've ever been. And you realize, or I realized, how much or how little I actually knew about myself. So I think it can be a catalyst for self-growth, but it doesn't come from necessarily a good place or a good experience, but you really see a snapshot of who you are and what you stand for. And I'm grateful for that. And I know I have a lot to work on, and, I have a kind of a pathway of what I want to do in my life, but I'd say that was garnered through fire, right? That was not given to me. I think that was earned, but it was not earned pleasantly, but I'm grateful for it.
I love that. Okay, so let's do summaries for everything. The main conversation was here about decision, about like the way of the 1%, how the 1% need to make decision. And I compared that. I have the phrase that I say always, fucking goldens. Like, if you want to be fucking golden in your life, there is stuff that you need to learn, stuff that you need to do. And one of them is to make decision. In everything in your life, you need to know and to learn how to make decision. And I really appreciate that conversation, because it's something that really close to my heart, that I have a problem with people that is not making decision. And mainly of my friends, all of them know how fast they need to make decision with me, because I already know what I want to do, but how I want to do it this way, like that, here and there. And I think you learn that about me. I'm like really quick decision. This is why I love to work with you and to be with you, because you are a sniper. When you make the decision, 100% it's right. I am more like, fuck it, I take every decision as yes. But it's good that I think that combination between us is great. And then we talk about purpose and why. And everyone needs to understand his purpose and his why. Because in the end, if you're doing something without a real mean purpose, like let's say you join to be the military only because you want to say to the girls, I was in the military, and you want to fuck more girls, it's never rolled up. And you're laughing, but in Israel, there is people that are trying to try out to the special forces only because that reason. It's more sexy to say I've been in that unit than just to be in the military. And it's never rolled up, even in life. This is why most of the entrepreneurs build family in the young age, because they got bigger and wide from themselves. You have children. Now you have Mookie, you have a dog that depend on you. Like, if you will just keep Mookie home for 2 weeks, she will die. Maybe she will drink some water and she'll barely survive, but she depend on you. It's funny, but that's true. In the same moment in war, you told me when you got inside war that you got a mission to protect your partner, to protect him in every cost, and that's become your why. And this is why you think you survived, because this is what you got bigger why than yourself. Then bigger why from yourself. And I think that's really impact people. So we talk about that. And now I will ask you the last thing about advice that you will have to give to the young Eli before he joined the military that you didn't know in that time.
Say live fast and eat ass.
Okay.
No, just kidding, Yovel. Just that everything is temporary.
Okay.
There's a phrase, like, remember when you'd go on those long marches and it would just be pouring rain, and it's like when you're outside in the rain and you have nowhere to hide and you have nowhere, you don't know where you're going. It's like geshem ba. Like, let it rain. Like, we're already out here getting wet. Like, let it rain. Let it just be a torrential fucking downpour, because that's going to be, an experience. And just let it rain.
I agree. I always say, until now, there is no motherfucker that can stop the time. So don't worry. Everything will pass.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Yovel.
Thank you, Eli Cohen, veteran of the IDF, business leader, and amazing person, an amazing friend of me. Thank you very much. Love you, brother. That was good.
Like it? It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
36 minutes. I love the conversation.